may have treated Haddon Clark, her gardener, her handyman, a lot like a son who came around and did odd jobs.
Haddon had become attached to Mrs. Hoagland, thinking that, she was like a mother figure. What came up is that Laura had just recently returned from Harvard and had moved into the house.
He began to think of Laura as usurping him in the household. She was replacing him. Haddon may have thought Penny Hoagland was his mother, but she wasn't. He was really, when it came down to it, the gardener and the handyman. And a rage did build up inside him, I believe.
With Haddon's confession, a full picture of a savage crime is finally revealed. In the early morning hours of October 19th, Haddon Clark let himself into the Hoagland house. Wearing a blonde wig, he entered Laura's bedroom and woke her up.
She must have been in total terror when she saw him there, especially since he was wearing a wig.
Clark then bound her limbs with duct tape and suffocated her on the bed. He slashed her throat, rolled her up in the bloody bed sheets, and then stashed her body in his truck.
Then he came back to the house, cleaned up, replaced the sheets, made it look as normal as he could.
Haddon Clark then climbed into the bed, his transformation complete.
The next morning, he put on the wig and used her hairbrush to brush his hair, where we got the fiber from the wig.
At 8 a.m., he left the house with Laura's briefcase, dressed as a woman and wearing a wig. That's who the neighbor's nanny saw leaving. Later that same night, Haddon Clark buried Laura Hoagland across the highway from his campsite.
For me, sadness was the predominant emotion at the time. And disbelief. Murder doesn't happen to people that I know. It doesn't happen to people I care about. And life isn't supposed to be this way. That was all changed for me.
With his plea of guilty to second-degree murder,
Haddon Clark was sentenced to 30 years in prison for the murder of Laura Hoagland. He later leads police to the remains of Michelle Dorr, the little girl he was suspected of murdering. He claims to have killed others, whose bodies have never been recovered. But the police have recovered Haddon's stash of trophies, including Laura Hoagland's high school ring.
It is the strangest, most bizarre murder case that I have ever worked on.
The psychic in this case helped us out, so I'm open to using psychics. If she can help me, I'm very glad to take her help to help me close cases.
I don't think I fully appreciated the impact Laura had on other people's lives until she died. For a memorial service, it was a spectacular group of people, and they really, really loved my sister. And I was very touched by that. She's a beautiful person. I miss her. I miss her.
Investigative reports. Next. The summer of '94 at America's West. It was one of the worst years in history for forest fires. It was also the year we woke up to a new reality. The forest has some new neighbors. They threw armies against the flames.
John, bring that hose down!
They used the most modern weapons available. All to protect the newcomers to the forests. But while the firefighters concentrated on saving these new houses and towns, more forest burned. There wasn't enough money or manpower to save both. Another problem. The fires were bigger. At one time during the season, 66,000 wildfires were raging across the western United States, consuming some 4 million acres of timber, an area larger than the state of Connecticut. They cost in excess of $1 billion to fight. And more devastating, they claimed the lives of a record 33 firefighters, 14 of them on Storm King Mountain in Colorado.
Hello, I'm Bill Curtis. In this episode of Investigative Reports, we'll take you into two of the largest forest fires the United States has ever seen. We'll go with the hotshots and the strike teams, men and women on the front line of attack, with smoke jumpers and pilots making the aerial drops and bombing runs on these fires. We'll see the scientists using high tech to fight the fires, and the people behind the scenes who support the front line. We'll show you that fighting forest fires in America has become big business, and yet, in spite of their heroic efforts, our war on fires is growing larger and more dangerous.
Of the entire western United States, Idaho is a hot spot. Over 293 separate fires were reported here in one season. Almost 300,000 acres were burned in Payette National Forest alone. Two separate fires threatened the tiny lakeside resort town of McCall. The Corral Fire started to the north and west, and almost simultaneously the Blackwell kicked up on the north and northeast. If they join together, they'll roll over anything, including McCall, Idaho, that lies in their path. By the time most firefighters reached the scene, a frontal attack was impossible. It was spreading too quickly and was already too big. They'll try to contain it, to save homes, and they called for the hotshots. Theirs is the most dangerous job of all.
You guys seen the thing spotted back up in here?
This group comes from Prescott, Arizona. Dwayne Kuhn leads the 20 men and 2 women.
Dwayne, make sure that they stay back.
Like an infantry squad, they step out quickly. Their job is to set up defensive lines in front of the 2 fires converging on McCall. These wildfires are becoming 2 of the largest in modern American history, and they're a strong example of the debate between those wanting to inhabit the wilderness, now called the urban interface, and those who want fire to take its natural course.
We are a tinderbox out there waiting to happen, and people wanted fire suppression, and that's what they got. But at the same time, we've changed the nature of the forest. You hear talk about this urban wildland interface. Well, that's a kind of a complex term for the fact that a whole lot of folks build a whole lot of houses right in the middle of the trees. Now, when that forest burns, you've not just got the forest fire on your hands, but you got homes and businesses and lives at stake, and that makes a very different problem.
The area around McCall, Idaho has been filling up with people migrating to enjoy the spectacular forest. They like the natural lifestyle and build their homes among the trees. This is the urban interface.
Everybody around here has chosen this area because of the gorgeous trees and the view and the lush vegetation. It's a double-edged sword living in the urban interface. It's a place where people have chosen to live for its beauty, and the natural resources around it also make it a potentially hazardous situation during fire season. I think probably what you're going to be hearing...
People like Al and Gwen McGowan have made the choice. For nearly 25 years, they visited the Idaho wilderness to be close to nature and away from the urban sprawl of their California home.
You're going to be here for the duration. All right.
Okay.
But like so many people, back in 1988, they decided to build a dream cabin smack dab in the middle of the Fayette National Forest, miles from the nearest town. Some trees even touched the house.
We've got a lot of fire behavior that suggests that there might be a change in the weather, and so we're watching.
This is real urban interface, and now their beautiful home is threatened by fire.
Still have the car packed, ready to go in a moment.
All right, well, that's good to be prepared.
Well, this is a beautiful homestead. It's just the kind of thing that's causing a problem for the people fighting fires.
People are moving to the woods. They're moving into the mountains where the brush is really thick because it's nice. That's the thing to do nowadays. It's terrible to walk into an area that's full-blown interface and have to do triage and say, okay, let's go ahead and start building a line here. We're going to have to write these houses off. We can't save those. We'll try these. It's really tough to make those decisions, but they have to be made nowadays because of the problem that arises from all these homes being built out in the woods.
I mean, that's why we're here, is the beauty, and to think that the forests are going. And I'm concerned with all the wildlife and that also. You know, they need that.
Well, I think the other thing is, if you look around our cabin, the trees are as close as they can get to the cabin. We cut a hole, cut out 5 major trees, and built the cabin in amongst the trees. Since we come from the desert, we appreciate each and every one of them, you know, and we don't want to have to cut back trees 100 yards in order to protect that cabin.
Few would argue with the need to save lives when fires grow this large. But what about the land? Fire is natural here. We're now spending hundreds of millions of dollars to hold back nature, trying to do what comes naturally. Burn.
I think it's similar to the situation with the floods and the situations with the earthquakes and other kinds of things where humans knowingly go out and build homes and structures and improvements across the landscape, knowing full well that there's a risk there, a danger that nature presents. These homes are being built in areas that naturally burn. It's natural for them to burn periodically, and there's been such a long history of fire suppression that's taken place. And with that fire suppression, these fuels have been allowed to build up. There's more dead trees around, so when a fire does come through, it's much more destructive. It's much harder to control.
This red line here is where we're going to start another burnout. You've probably seen the burnout behind your house.
The hotshots have started to burn their defensive perimeter around McCall. These homeowners want to know how bad the threat is. This is life on the urban interface.
We have excellent line in here. We're in excellent shape right now for securing this.
For now, these people and their property are safe.
Down in the residential area now. We are still might get.
When investigative reports continues, we look at the army of workers fighting fire with fire.
Last year, more than 460,000 kids were arrested. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is helping bring them home. The National Center has handled more than 4 million calls over the last 30 years, and working with law enforcement has helped recover more than 228,000 missing children. To learn more or to help, call 1-800-THE-LOST or visit us online at missingkids.org.
I won this 55-inch TV for less than $30 on DealDash.com. I got this floor steamer for $1.74. What's not to love?
These aren't actors, they're real people who got real savings at DealDash.com, the fair and honest bidding site.
On DealDash, I got this $349 mixer for less than $25.
iPads sell for as little as $5, laptops for $10, and professional cameras for as little as $20.
I got all this big stuff for only $40. I got all this for less than $50 on DealDash.com.
Try Deal Dash today. If you don't win, get your money back. But hurry, everything must go. Go to DealDash.com now to start bidding.
In my first 4 months on Deal Dash, I won 104 auctions. And shipping is always free.
Visit DealDash.com and start bidding today.
Native Americans knew fire was a part of the forest's cycle of life. Starting with a lightning strike, the sparks can easily turn into a firestorm. And after the flames, there's a healthier forest with minerals that return to the soil and fertilize new life.
This is our nutrient source. This is our future nitrogen source. This is the seed source. It's going to grow trees, plants of all varieties right here. So when you hear about the fires burning everything up and everything's going to die and oh my gosh, it's all burned out, it doesn't look bad. You get down here. Hell, that soil isn't even hot. I can hold this. This has only been burned an hour ago, you know? So we're just looking at nature doing her thing. And I'm saying this is going to be green and healthy. And it's going to be coming back in nice.
This cycle is as old as the mountains themselves.
There you go.
Indians learned to use it by burning off low-growing vegetation like these firefighters, creating a backburn. Each year they would ignite the low brush and new growth. The large stands of old timber were spared. Without fuel, it was impossible for the flames to reach the branches of the taller trees. But as the urban interface grew, so did a policy of prevention. To let a fire burn was viewed as irresponsible. And this created another kind of problem. Without fire to clean it out, the low brush began to build up. Then came drought, adding more fuel, creating a kind of ladder that reached higher up the trees, so that almost any fire, pushed by hot, dry winds, could jump to the tops of the trees and leapfrog across thousands of acres. Just like the Blackwell and Corral in Idaho. In 1988, one of America's greatest icons caught fire. Nearly 1 million acres of Yellowstone National Park were charred. This was a wake-up call to what the no-burn policy had created. Faced with nightly news reports of a natural beauty in flames, it became painfully obvious that close to a century of suppression had created a time bomb, sure to go off with the smallest spark. It was time to accept what the Indians knew all along, that fire is a natural part of the environment, and any solution to the problems in our forests has to accept that fact.
Fire was the recycler in those forests. Those forests grow material, the surplus materials recycled by fire. When we took the fire out for 10 or 15 years or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, that material just continued to build up because there's no place else for it to go. So by taking that natural recycler out of the system, we've caused this problem of such heavy fuel buildups.
Before the flames even started in Idaho, firefighters were working long hours in Washington state. Fires burned there for nearly a month and threatened towns like Chelan and the Bavarian-themed resort of Leavenworth, where thousands of tourists and their dollars were scared away for part of the season. Over 2 million acres had already been blackened in the western United States by the time August rolled around, more land than was consumed in all of 1993. But the tough fight was just beginning. In Idaho, within days of the first flames near McCall, the word was sent for help, and weary firefighters from 42 states were coming in. The battle was forming. 3,500 men and women hitting the line. Dwayne Kuhn and his hotshots are one element in a coordinated battle to keep the fire out of McCall. They had plenty of backup. After the 1989 California earthquake, The federal government implemented a national incident command system to coordinate all disaster response and relief efforts throughout the country. It requires every fire department at the state, regional, and local level to respond to fire, floods, and other natural disasters. It's a way to organize relief workers so that everyone has a defined role. If they need it, the Prescott Hotshots can call in air support. The Bureau of Land Management has some 400 paratroopers, rapid response firefighters stationed all over the West Coast, who can be activated at a moment's notice. The grunts on the ground can also call in bombers. They dump chemical retardants called slurry. These helicopters drop up to 1,000 gallons of water on smaller targets with precision. Coon's hotshots don't see the big picture on the front line. That comes from the Pentagon of firefighting, the National Incident Coordination Center in Boise. It handles operations from Alaska to Arizona. The comparison to a real war is never greater than here. A war room directs forces and supplies to thousands on the front line. This supply line has everything: food, shovels, sleeping bags, emergency equipment, and at one time was supplying some 300,000 AA batteries a day to the front lines.
For the last 35 days, we've been averaging about 120 tons of cargo a day. Everything from sleeping bags, some food items, Pulaski shovels, hand tools, hose, pumps, nozzles, water handling fittings, you name it, we ship it.
Come in. A perfect example of how the policy of protecting the urban interface affects the entire fight comes about 1 week into the battle for McCall.
Turn the corner. We're going to have to give up those 10 crews because we're a lower priority. They're giving us 24 hours to try and turn.
A call goes out from the command center to shift resources.
But compared to what's happening apparently both on the Wasatch Front and in on the Payette, where structures are imminently threatened, they need these 10 crews.
This fire has been burning for more than 7 days and is seriously encroaching on a national wilderness area. There are few homes here, so the concentration shifts to saving more populated areas and the town of McCall. The decision isn't popular with those living in the wilderness now neglected. The choice between what to protect and what to abandon is difficult.
Up here they got a couple thousand firefighters working on the north end side of there at Payette Lake, and it's they're fighting the fire like it's political almost, you know. I mean, screw the people up here, you know. It doesn't matter how we feel about it, or you know, whether we've been here 5 minutes or half the year or whatever. You know, they haven't done nothing on this end of it. They just let it burn.
Benson's family has been living on this land for 3 generations. They now face total destruction of their property. When the focus becomes saving the more valuable real estate, families like the Bensons feel abandoned. When investigative reports continues here on A&E, the hotshots are still battling to save McCall and the Payette National Forest.
Every day, Sue Lily brings you something special.
Stockton is so cute. My eyes are literally going to explode out of my face.
Tanya, we can't have that happen.
Oh, no, it's just a saying. Like, I'm so excited I could die.
That's morbid.
Or I got ants in my pants.
That's disgusting. Tanya, this got so dark. Quick, cut to a dog. Sue Lily, something special every day.
Have you ever dreamed of waking up with 20/20 vision? The LASIK Vision Institute could be what you've been searching for. We're making your LASIK dream even more affordable, with procedures now starting as low as $220 per eye. Our trusted independent surgeons have performed over 1 million procedures. With recent advances in vision improvement technology, LASIK surgery is a sensible and affordable solution to improve your vision. And with a nationwide network of LASIK surgery centers, the LASIK Vision Institute offers convenient and reliable vision improvement services. Our simple process begins with a free consultation, including a comprehensive preoperative exam to determine if you're a candidate for LASIK eye surgery. Next, you and your surgeon will choose the LASIK option that works best for you. On average, your LASIK surgery should be complete in just 15 minutes. The majority of LASIK patients return back to most activities, including work, the following day.
I was very tired of
Just note the bed is vibrating and it feels like electrical currents going right now.
I mean, not even 10 minutes.
You can hear footsteps upstairs.
And as soon as you're done, you open your eyes and you have the gift of sight.
My experience with LASIK Vision Institute was a life-changing experience for me. I look across the street in the trees, and I could actually see the birds and the color of the birds. You could see the individual leaves. And I almost felt like I had a high-definition TV right in my own head. It's probably one of the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences that I've had in my life.
When I woke up after having the procedure done, I was amazed with what I could see. I could see my alarm clock, I could see the TV, everything was much crisper. Having LASIK done was really a life changer for me.
Stop dreaming about better vision. Schedule your free consultation at the LASIK Vision Institute today.
Call 1-800-983-7166 or text I to 43506.
Talking to a psychic over the phone is a bit impersonal. It can't be for real, can they?
We asked these skeptics to try California Psychics.
California Psychics really took me by surprise.
That one call opened their eyes.
It was specific to me. I mean, she picked up on so many things that there's no way she could have picked up on. I got everything I can imagine from my reading. That reading was a year ago, and it's still helping me. A year later, after talking to a psychic, I am having a great life.
Call now and talk to a real psychic, starting at just $1 per minute. If it's not the best psychic reading you've ever experienced, it's free.
She was explaining to me about the guy that I was seeing at the time. Should I do this? Should I not do this? And I did, and we're together. It's all going down the path that she said that it would.
Come on, what are you waiting for?
This one call absolutely changed my life.
Make that call now, starting at $1 per minute, and find out for yourself. Or download the app. If it's not the best psychic reading you've ever experienced, it's free. California Psychics. Call or download the app today and change your life forever.
Fire has a life force all its own. It's a living, breathing thing that moves and grows and seems to strike out against anything in its path. But when you ask a firefighter or a hotshot why put their life on the line to fight something that seems unbeatable? There's a respect.
You know, we're here from around Idaho, and we're Native Americans, and we believe that everything's got a spirit in it, and that fire, that's a spirit in itself. You gotta really respect that fire, because that fire, that fire can take your life, or you can use that fire, in many different ways, and it'll give you life too. And with these trees, they got spirits in them too. I'm out there trying to save them trees, from burning up, because they're living beings themselves.
Since this is like the most fire I've seen since I've been fighting fire, I think just like the adrenaline rush, you hear those trees torch and you see them, and it's really exciting. One time we cut line all the way down to the bottom of this mountain, and all of a sudden we got a call to come out because the fire was getting really close to us. And right there, it's just, I don't know, it seems kind of weird, but it's just the intense part of it. You get out safely and everything's okay, and you just want to go back and do it again. And I think that's the whole part of it. It's just a big rush. It's fun.
While these firefighters may seem a bit crazy, there really is a method to the madness of firefighting and survival in the woods. The crew can walk hundreds of miles on a single job, and they must maintain supplies in a single bundle that can be strapped on their back.
Set of gear like this one here, weighs about 35 to 40 pounds, carries gas and oil for the chainsaw, wedges for falling, a minimum of a gallon, usually more like a gallon and a half of water to be able to get through a shift.
Paul Musser and these men are another hotshot team that's come in from Flagstaff, Arizona. They're preparing to leave the base camp and move into a burning area near the Blackwell complex. complex. And while you might think that this type of dangerous career is high-paying, with great benefits, it's surprising to hear that only a few people, usually the most senior members of the team, are full-time employees of the Forest Service. The rest of the squad come and go each season. The pay for this glamorous line of work, about $8 an hour, or up to $10 an hour if you're in a hazardous area. And all this time, living out in the woods only pays about $20,000 for a busy season. These part-timers who face death daily have no medical or life insurance benefits. Adam Fenner is on the crew from Flagstaff. He had to leave his fiancée behind.
I love you. It's a great job. Really, you gotta love to do it. And it's a lot of work and a lot of hours, and like Paul said, you're gone from your family a lot.
And for hotshots like Mark Nelson, being away all summer means missing important family time. His wife just had a baby.
Yeah, it's real tough, especially because my wife's birthday is in July, so I miss that every year. Now, baby's birthday is in August, I'm going to miss that every year. Anniversary's in October, probably miss that most of the years. Yeah, it's kind of tough anyway.
Well, this crew will soon be joining the Prescott hotshots up on the front lines. The support city in the base camp is nearing critical mass. Everything it takes to fight fires comes through here.
With the overhead and then the people associated with equipment and caterers and shower units, there's well over 2,000 people here in 4 different camps. We supply it all. All the orders for the entire fire come through here. Everything from porta potties to fax machines to computers to water tenders to caterers, about everything you can think of. Everything on a fire, including helicopters, are ordered through supply.
The system has become so strained, the military is being called in to provide more manpower. 7,000 soldiers saw action in Washington state. They've come to the Blackwell complex to help out.
We've got a total of 539 soldiers, and we expect to be out here about 30 days. So far, things have gone extremely well and extremely safe. The soldiers are very motivated. Every morning they wake up about 5 o'clock. They enjoy what they're doing. They feel like they're doing something to help Idaho and the citizens around this area. It just seems they get stronger every day. They seem like they're really doing something good for the people.
Many scientists have devoted their lives to understanding fire behavior, and this year they came one step closer. When investigative reports continues, we'll take a look at some of the high-tech weapons used in the war against forest fires.
Look around. So many of us are on our phones and laptops. We're on public Wi-Fi, shopping online, filling out forms and applications. In the connected world we live in, our personal information is everywhere. What happens if that information gets in the hands of identity thieves?
I started getting phone calls from credit collection companies if they wanted payment for things that I did not do.
Your information is in a lot of places. Your protection should be too. That's why LifeLock now includes the power of Norton for even more protection for your identity and your devices, where so much of your personal information lives. Identity theft is more than just crooks making
They're
charges on your
upstairs
credit
banging
card.
on the
When a
floor.
criminal has your personal information, they can do all sorts of
And
things
I don't
in
know
your
what they
name.
did, but
Take out
whenever they
loans,
walked to the
file
room,
tax
whenever I
returns,
really
buy
go to
property,
sleep,
and more.
Someone benefited from
they
this.
turn on something.
And your devices. LifeLock and Norton are now part of
Vibrating now.
one mission, providing
Sending some
identity
type
and
of
device protection
charges
for
to
your
me.
connected life. When LifeLock sees your information being used, we'll alert you and help you resolve any identity theft problem. And with the added
These are terrorists. They just don't stop. They're very mischievous criminal minds. Just will not stop.
Email from LifeLock saying someone has opened an account in my name. Did you do this? I'm like, no. So they called me up, said let's get this case open and get this resolved. I had over a dozen credit cards and accounts all across the country, and every single time, LifeLock fixed the problem.
Most of us procrastinate more than we should. We know identity theft is a very real problem. We think we'll put a plan in place someday, right? Why not
Cool
join
bed is hot.
right now? LifeLock LifeLock with Norton delivers the layers of protection you need
Just
in a
won't stop.
connected world.
They don't stop, people.
Your information is in a lot of places. Your protection should be too. If you only monitor
They won't stop.
certain identity theft threats,
They just continue day and night. Trying to control down here. Control what room we go in. How long we're in that room. If we're in that area.
is keeping me one step ahead of the bad guys. Here's how LifeLock works. Our proprietary network scans hundreds of millions of transactions each second, including applications for things like mortgages, loans, credit cards, and more. We see your information being used. We'll send you an alert. If there's a problem, our agents will work to fix it, making calls and following up, even waiting on hold for you. And listen to this. When you join, you will be covered by LifeLock's powerful $1 million protection package for the life of your money. If your money is stolen or if you have expenses due to identity theft, LifeLock will either get it back for you or reimburse you for it up to the limit of your plan. Plus, we'll provide lawyers and experts if that's what it takes. I was covered through my membership for a personal property taxes, and I received a check for approximately $1,200. Through LifeLock with Norton,
They don't stop. I've told several people about this, and not one person has offered to help. I told the city, told the family, nothing. It's quite okay.